What if Saitama existed in the world of Mashle and they made an anime about it? Well, they did. Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I'm the Monio, the interdimensional demon who talks the most about animes with extremely long names on YouTube, and you're on my channel. A dark elf, a demon girl, a stylish guy, and a strong orc will train the protagonist until he becomes an extremely strong guy with only physical strength, but other people will think he's weak. And yes, speaking like that about the story and the characters, it all seems very cliché, but let's talk a little about how this anime manages to surprise a lot and very quickly. And I was serious when I said that the title of this anime is long. In fact, it's one of those animes in which the title is already the synopsis. The ossan newbie adventurer trainer to the death by the most powerful party become invincible. But since the main character is called Rick, for practical reasons I'm going to call it Rick's anime. Rick's anime is one of those new animes that are released en masse with a medieval fantasy theme, and this is a theme that I don't usually like, because the Japanese anime market is super saturated with animes like this, especially isekais. The problem with all these similar animes is that few are really good, or stand out in some aspect, but Rick's anime, despite not being anything innovative in terms of theme and characters, manages to be very good, with a script and a story that do the basics, but in a very well executed way. The protagonist of the story, Rick, had the dream of becoming an adventurer, but he spent his entire adolescence working to help his family. The problem is that in this world, in order to develop your magic, you need to start training from a very young age, or your magic will not develop, and that is exactly what happened to Rick, and at over 30 years old he still had the dream of becoming an adventurer, even though his magic was extremely weak. Rick then joins a group of extremely strong people, who train him focusing on his physical abilities, which become exceptional, on the level of his companions. But officially Rick is still an F rank, the lowest in this world, and so the anime begins. The humor dynamics of this anime work very well, doing something similar to One Punch Man, where everyone underestimates the protagonist because he has a low ranking and doesn't seem strong, and the jokes are focused on breaking everyone's expectations, discovering that Rick is extremely strong, in fact one of the strongest in this world, since his power is at a level of ranking S, even though he is classified with a low ranking. Rick is a very charismatic character, and has a good backstory that is told through flashbacks. Because he is a character a little older than the other adventurers, he is often reminded that he started pursuing his dreams very late, but this creates an extra layer of identification with the character, since one of the messages of the anime is that it is never too late to start, and that no matter your age, if you try hard enough, you can make your dreams come true. Another character who stands out a lot is Angelica, who starts out as Rick's rival, but later becomes his disciple. Angelica has an interesting character arc, in which she tries to go against the fate that was imposed on her by her family and her social position, but to do so she needs to be strong, and this search for power makes her accept Rick's training. Her development is very interesting, as she starts out as an arrogant character who thinks she is strong, to a person who is aware of the limitations of her current strength, but who wants to progress and surpass Rick. The other main characters are not as prominent, but they are charismatic, each in their own way. The only one who had some development and an arc of his own was the orc, who has a tragic story, but who forms a strong bond with the protagonist and also with the friendship of his companions. In fact, the dark elf, Rionette, seems to have a tragic past involving dragons, as she can sense their presence and becomes destabilized when she encounters them, and this is shown extremely quickly in the first episodes. This will probably be better explored at some point, in a possible second season of the anime, and she will probably have her character arc to overcome her traumas, and perhaps this clash will be with the probable final villain of the story, which from what has been shown, seems to be a dragon or some dragon-like creature. One thing the anime does very well is giving charisma and development to supporting characters, within the time limit they appear in that story arc, as is the case with that guy who looks like Ken Masters. The script does a good job of showing him as a rival to the protagonists, but making the character interesting enough for us to root for him too, with a simple but very effective character arc in which he dreams of fighting with all his might against someone stronger. A really cool thing about the anime is that at various times it refers to older anime, which had an aesthetic, a narrative style, and music very characteristic of their time, especially anime from the late 2000s, when this type of fantasy genre was not so common and had much more development than anime today. Another thing that is very well explored and is one of the themes of the anime is the relationship between having or not having talent, with the ability to achieve your goals and dreams based on training and effort, since most of the antagonists are very talented people who are proud of being prodigies, and having been born with some kind of talent or natural power that makes them strong with little effort. And this draws a parallel with Rick, who was absurdly weak, but who managed to compensate for his lack of talent with extreme effort and perseverance. And although this is a cliché, since effort is literally one of the mottos of Shonen Jump, it is a very beautiful and rewarding message, which makes perfect sense with the protagonist's story and inspires those who watch it. One of the negative points that I would like to highlight is the quality of the animation. In fact, the quality is very good at times. The problem is that there is a huge fluctuation in this quality, especially in moments when the characters are standing still and talking. You can see that a lot of the anime's budget was saved on these parts. This is not the case in the action scenes, which are generally good. However, it is still disappointing to see a character standing completely still, looking at someone, and having him drawn in a way that is clearly very bad compared to previous scenes. Another thing that also doesn't stand out much is the art direction, which is generally very generic, with few visual elements that stand out to the point of creating a unique identity. In general, the places, objects, and monsters are very similar to what we see in other medieval fantasy anime. Even the design of the characters' clothes is very generic. Even the protagonists, who should be quite stylish, don't have very distinctive clothes. This is even worse when we are talking about the supporting characters, who have a completely generic look. I think that overall the anime is a bit generic visually, and this probably wouldn't happen if we weren't so used to so many medieval fantasy animes, and although many don't consider this a flaw, I believe that it's important for a work to stand out visually, as this directly impacts how people will discover that content. For example, Frieren has become a very well-known anime for its quality and unique theme, but Frieren doesn't stand out visually. If you're browsing a streaming service and see the cover of Frieren, you'll just think it's just another generic medieval fantasy anime, as it doesn't catch your eye. On the other hand, animes like JoJo, which have a very strong visual identity, are able to immediately stand out and draw attention to something potentially different. But despite being a bit generic in some points, I loved Rick's anime, because it's very fun, has a very good protagonist, very charismatic characters, and a very captivating story. It's definitely one of the coolest animes of this year, and one of the ones I enjoyed watching the most. Even for those of you who can't stand so many medieval fantasy animes, give Rick's anime a chance. If you haven't seen it yet, the first season is already complete with 12 episodes. Since the title is very long, I'll put the full title in the video description, in case you want to copy it to watch it. But what about you? Have you watched Rick's anime? If so, what did you think? Leave it in the comments, and if you liked the video, subscribe to follow the next content. Until next time my people, demonic hugs.